during the quantitative analysis, you determine you are having a particular risk, say 6-month time impact and a 10 million cost impact. Upon deciding the action plan in the planned risk response process, so you came up with a certain actions. With that action, if you implement this action, whether this risk impact is reducing or still same. Say if you are implementing a particular risk action, your impact analysis shows 6-month time delay. With the implementation of your action plan, now the risk impact reduced to 1 month. With implementation action plan, your cost impact reduced to say 1 million. Instead of 10 million, it now reduced to 1 million. So the net impact will be 1 month time impact and 1 month cost impact upon deciding the actual response plan. That's why we are saying it should be repeated. Let's look at the process. So when I want to quantify the risk impact, what I need to have in my hand? For risk management plan is one of the good input because we already thought about it. How are you going to perform the quantitative analysis? What are the tools and techniques you are going to utilize? You already documented over there. Most of the time, our impact is being calculated based on scope impact, time impact, cost impact. So these 3 baselines are useful document for us. Other project documents like assumption log, basis of estimates, cost estimates, cost forecast, duration estimates, milestone list, resource requirements, risk register. Of course, risk register contains all the information which we have analyzed so far, risk report, and schedule forecast. These are the documents we can utilize while we are performing the quantitative risk analysis. Organizational processes, we may use our lessons learned documentation from the past projects. Look at the tools and techniques available for us, expert judgment. Of course, we cannot quantify each risk yourself. You may need to utilize various experts. Data gathering techniques, again, interview technique. Interpersonal and team skills, again, facilitation techniques. We are facilitating the team members and experts sit together and determine the quantitative impact of each risk on the various objectives of the project. Representation of uncertainty, we will talk about it. Other data analysis technique, simulations. We spoke about simulations before. And we have simulations, sensitivity analysis, decision tree analysis, influence diagram. These are the 4 techniques available under data analysis technique. So what is the result of this process? Here we are updating the analyzed information into the risk report. Hereafter, all the informations are updated into the risk report. Interview technique, basically we are sitting down with the team members, stakeholders and subject matter experts to talk about their experience in the past project, working with the different type of technology and processes which are going to use in the project so that they can be able to help us in determining the impact of each risk. There is a technique called sensitivity analysis, expected monetary value analysis, decision tree analysis, and modeling and simulation, which are quantitative risk analysis and modeling techniques. And I say sensitivity analysis, when we are talking about the various type of risk exist in the project, we may have technical risk, management risk, external risk, client risk, and so on, right? So which risk is posing highest impact on the project? How will you identify? So we do perform diagram like this, which is called a tornado diagram. We plot all the different category of risk into the diagram to see which is having highest impact on the project. So in our sample diagram, you can see technical risk is the highest. The next one is quality risk. The next one is project management risk. The next one is organizational risk. So we can understand the severity of the different category of risk in the project. That's called sensitivity analysis. Expected monetary value analysis, which is nothing but probability multiplied by impact. Example, you have a risk which may going to create a cost impact of say $10,000. But the chances of risk occurrence is 20%. What is the EMV value for this risk? Which is 2,000, which is 0.2 multiplied by 10,000. That is 2,000. Say for example, I have two projects, project 1 and project 2. I need to decide which project to go on or which project to select. We spoke about the project selection before. We always look for the project easier to do. Technology, methodology are easily available in the industry. Least time, least cost, least risk. Resources are easily available. Of course, risk is one of the factors. So when you are analyzing the potential risk in project 1, there are two risks which we may face. The risk one is having say 20% probability. The expected impact is 300,000, which is positive. Risk 2 is a negative risk, which is having 80% probability. And the potential impact, say 40,000 negative impact. So we can calculate EME for each risk. So EME for this risk is 0.2 multiplied by 300 is 60,000 plus. Here 0.8 multiplied by minus 40,000. So 32,000 is the negative. If you add these two, we're getting say 28,000. So project 1 EME value is 28,000. Project 2 has three risks. First risk is having 20% probability, 50,000 negative impact. Second is having 10% probability, 20,000 negative impact. Third risk is having 70% probability, 60,000 positive impact. So we calculate the EME value for these three, add up together, we're getting 30,000 positive. So which project you will choose? Naturally, if it is a positive risk, whatever the positive value is higher, we choose because we are looking for the highest benefit. The next is decision tree analysis. For example, I need to take decision whether I need to buy or build. Meaning buy means we either to appoint a third party to do the work or we need to do it ourselves. That's what we need to decide. So in order to do that, so when I want to buy, say I have to spend say $175,000. When I want to build, I need to spend say $165,000. Analyzing the buying option, what all the risk associated with this? Say risk 1, risk 2, strong, that means the best situation, worst situation. So I'm calculating the probability of risk happening. I'm determining the EME value for this risk. And then in the weak 15%, I'm determining say 26,150. In the build case, in the strong best case, 75% probability. So I have how much EME value I'm calculating. In the weak poor situations, how much we need to have it. EME value. When I look at all the EME values are positive. So here all the positive elements, I need to take the highest positive value. That is the best issue. So I'm deciding to go for buying the product from the third party. Another example, build or upgrade. So I need to decide whether I need to build a new factory or upgrade the existing factory. So one of the consideration is risk consideration. So I'm analyzing the risk in building a new factory. Say in the strong demand, what is the risk involved, how much percentage of happening and what is the impact. In the weak demand, how much a percentage is happening and the impact. So I'm calculating EME value 80 into 0.65, which is equivalent to, so I'm calculating totally 41.5 million over here. So in the second case, upgrading the existing plant. So I'm looking at the two risks, strong demand and weak demand. I'm looking at the percentage of happening and the impact. I'm calculating the EME value. So it comes about 49 million. So both are in this case positive as well. So what's the best decision to go? I go for highest positive value. My beneficiary is 49 million. So it is better to go with the decision of upgrading the existing plant. That will be more beneficial for us. So by knowing the EME value for each risk, easy for us to take decision appropriately. Modeling and simulation technique, we spoke about it during the schedule development, Monte Carlo simulation. The same technique is being utilized here. So here what we are trying to do is, when you are talking about each individual risk, you may be able to tell me how much time impact, how much cost impact for each risk. But you will not be able to calculate the impact on the project if multiple risks happening on the same time. Each risk you may have, so risk one, it will going to cost 1 month time impact and 5 million cost impact. Risk two is going to cost 2 month cost time impact and 10 million cost impact, you can tell me. Whereas if I ask you combine the effect of the risk on the project, you will not be able to tell me. That's why we are performing the Monte Carlo simulation, where we are feeding all the risk conditions into the simulation software. It simulates the project in different scenarios. It can simulate over 100 possible scenarios so that it can able to tell you what is the probability of completing the project on time or within the agreed time frame. What is the probability of completing the project within the agreed budget? And in this combination of risk conditions, what should be the critical path you should follow? It will show you all the critical path activities you need to manage in this risk condition. And then it also will tell you what is the risk rating of the project, meaning whether it is a low risk project or medium risk project or high risk project. It can be able to tell you through the Monte Carlo simulation. Expert judgment, we know. So we are updating the risk register with the prioritized list of risks, which means the risks that have the greatest opportunity as well as the impacting, creating the negative impact on the project, which is being, all the quantified values is being updated into the risk report, basically. And also you can see, while you are performing this quantitative analysis in different stages of the project life cycle, you should be able to see the trend in the risk happening, whether sometimes the trend will be, or the risks are increasing, the risks are decreasing. You can be able to see the trend when you are analyzing the quantitative value. The next step is planned risk response. First, planned risk response. Now we understand the risk very well. We understand the probability happening, areas of impact, classification of the risk into high, medium, low, and then we quantified each risk impact on the various objectives of the project, like time impact, cost impact, and other impact. Now it is our time to focus on what all the options and actions available in our hand in order to respond to the risk when it happens. So in this process, our focus is how to decrease the possibility of negative risk and how to increase the likelihood of positive risk. Also, we have another responsibility in this process. We need to assign a responsible team member who is accountable for implementing the risk response plan which we are creating in this process. They are called as risk response owner or simply risk owner. And he is accountable for implementing the agreed risk response action plan within the agreed time frame and budget when the risk happens. The planned response must be appropriate to the significance of the risk, meaning it should be cost effective, timely, realistic, and agreed upon by all the parties involved and owned by a responsible person. Say, for example, you have a risk which is going to cause a 10,000 real impact, but you are coming up with the action plan which is going to cost you 25,000 real. Is your risk response appropriate? No. That's why I say risk response must be cost effective, timely, realistic, and should be agreed by all the parties involved. Let's look at the process. So when I want to perform the risk response action plan, what I need to have in my hand? Of course, resource management plan helps me. In the risk management plan, I already thought about how I am going to perform the risk response planning and what are all the tools and techniques I may utilize, what are the strategies available with us in terms of dealing with the negative risk, what are the strategies available with us in terms of dealing with the positive risk. We are already documented in the risk management plan. Of course, cost baseline is one of the key elements. And other documents we can utilize lessons learned register. This lessons learned register is the lessons learned we learned until today in this project. Okay, that's the lessons learned register. Because this risk response planning will happen periodically throughout the life cycle. Project schedule, yes, definitely it's going to create time impact. So we need to see what is the response on the time, how it's going to be, which period our response action should be happening can be seen. Project team assignments, what are the various responsibilities of the team members with respect to the risk management work, resource calendars, useful information, what kind of resources available with us, what kind of expertise, experience these resources available, and when they will be available in our project. When the risk happens, no expertise resources available in the project, it's also going to be a source of increasing the risk again. Risk register, risk report, and stakeholder register. Why we need stakeholder register? Why we need stakeholder register? Here we are trying to come up with the best option of action plans, which will help us in reducing the impact on the project, right? So that we will be able to achieve the project objective. So how is going to achieve? So we need to utilize the stakeholders, those who are having experience and expertise in the risk management area. In the risk stakeholder register, we already analyzed what are the various expertise and experience of different stakeholders and what are the areas they can contribute in our project. All we have analyzed and documented. So we can utilize them to see who are the stakeholders useful for deciding the action plan in this process. Enterprise fundamental factors. Many factors affect our risk. And organizational process asset. We may use our previous projects, lessons learned documentations, previous project, risk registers, updated risk report can be utilized. Look at the tools and techniques available. Again, expert judgment, interview technique, facilitation. With these three are commonly used technique in all the processes in our risk management. And we have used these processes in many areas. And the strategies for negative risk, we'll talk about it. Strategies for positive risk, contingent response strategies, strategies for overall project risk, data analysis technique. Again, we are using alternative analysis, cost benefit analysis, decision making technique, multi criteria decision analysis, all these techniques can be utilized over here. See the result? Change request. What do I mean by change request? And project management plan updates and project documents updates. Here, when I say change request, when you are deciding the action plan for each risk using these techniques, what is your next action? It depends on where are we in the project life cycle. If you are in the planning stage, you need to go for updating all our plans. What does that mean? What is the explanation I gave you about this? Upon completion of the risk response planning, we have to carry out 3 actions. I will see who are the people remember those 3 actions. Upon completion of the planned risk response, we need to perform 3 actions. Tell me what are those 3 actions? You are full expert now. I have to explain to you when I give you overview. Upon completion of the planned risk response, we need to revise all our plans, which is called iteration. This is called iteration. So we are iterating we are revising our scope management plan strategy, schedule management strategy, revising the schedule, revising the resources, revising the duration, revising the cost estimation, re-reviewing the quality standards and methodology technology we have chosen for the project based on the understanding of the risk conditions and the action plans we have created. So we are revising all our plans. That's why we said our plans are getting realistic. So in order to achieve the realistic plan, upon completion of the risk response action plan, we need to revise all our plans. Then second action, all these actions is going to affect our procurement strategy. So all our action plans and has to be passed on to the planned procurement process in order to devise the appropriate procurement strategy. Whether need to go for tender, whether need to go for proposal, whether need to go for quotation, whether you want to go for lump sum contract, or whether you go for cost reimbursable contract, or the time-phased contract, all depends on the risk and the nature of how much impact and the action plans we have in our. The third action is we need to give input into the conduct procurement process, where we are thinking about selecting the appropriate sellers in achieving the project objectives by managing this risk in our hand. So we are going to enter contract with the various sellers in the project, where we are stipulating a lot of contractual obligations and conditions. Most of these contractual obligations and conditions are devised based on the risk actions plan. Basically, we are.
Excuse me, sir. The screen is not appearing.
Screen is not appearing?
Yeah. Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay.
Okay for me. Thank you.
So when we are entering the contract with the sellers, we are putting the contractual obligations as a condition. Most of these conditions are translation of risk action plans into contractual condition to make sure the seller will be managing this risk appropriately to achieve the project work within our plans. So these are the three actions we need to do upon completion of this process. That's why here we say project management plan update. We end up at updating schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, resource management plan, procurement management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline, all will get updated. And other documents like assumption log gets updated, cost forecast, lessons learned register, schedule update, project team assignments may get updated, risk register gets updated, risk report gets updated. These are called documents update. Let's look at the techniques. This is straightforward process mapping. Strategies for negative risk. Strategies for negative risk. Here, there are 4 strategies available with us. Risk avoidance, risk acceptance, risk transference, risk mitigation. These are the 4 strategies we could utilize in coming up with a plan of action for managing the negative risk. Avoiding the risk. What do you mean avoiding the risk? You are trying to avoid the risk by changing the project plan to eliminate the risk, clarifying the requirements to avoid discrepancies, hiring additional team members who have experience with the technology the project is dealing with, using a proven methodology rather than new approach, all are avoiding techniques. Transferring the risk. What do you mean by transferring the risk? We are transferring the ownership of managing the risk to the third party. You are transferring the risk to the third party. That means you are transferring the risk to the third party contractor and so on. The risk is not disappearing from the project. It is still there. Only you are transferring the ownership to the third party. Of course, it is not coming free. They are not going to manage this risk for free. They are going to charge you. You are going to pay the premium for it. Common examples of risk transference like insurance, performance bond, warranties, guarantees, fixed price contracts. These all are examples of the risk transference. Mitigating the risk. What do we mitigating the risk? When I say mitigation of the risk is an effort to reduce the probability or impact of an identified risk. Generally, mitigation is done based on the project logic before the risk happens. Before the risk happens. A fixed price contract is a risk transference also. You are appointing a third party contractor to do a package because you see this package is a risky package. Why you are appointing him? Because you want to transfer the risk to them. They have the experience and expertise in managing the risk. That's called risk transference. So what is this mitigation? Mitigation is done based on the logic before the risk happens. For example, say you know that there is a possibility of risk impact, but you are not taking any action in managing the risk. You are not taking any mitigation action before the risk happens. You allow the risk to happen. When the risk happens, it is causing a damage like time impact, cost impact. But you still need to repair the damage caused by the risk. Otherwise, the customer is not going to accept. So what you will do? You will come up with the action plan for recovering the schedule, recovering the budget, and so on. The cost of repair is going to be costly than the money or time you go to spend in taking action before the risk happens. That's why it is very low. So that's why we always say mitigation is good, because you are taking action before the risk happens. So it reduces the impact of the risk on the project. Examples of mitigation: adding activities to the project to reduce the risk. So you're breaking down into smaller steps and carrying out the activities. Simplifying the processes within the project. Completing more tests on the project work before implementation. Developing prototype is form of the mitigation. Simulations, limiter releases, all comes under mitigation. We understand the prototype and simulation. What is limiter releases? Limiter releases, IT people all can explain what is limiter releases, right? Which is a risk reduction strategy. It's a mitigation action. No mass production. Yes. I'll give you a simple example. Say when you are looking at any new car model comes into the market, when they design a particular model, are they going to produce the cars, say, for 10 million and distribute to the industry directly to the market? No. If they do that, if there is a major problem in the car, all the 10 million cars has to be recalled. That's why when you do any model, they always comes up with a limited edition. So each market, they put 100 to 200,000 cars into the market, and then they seek the feedback of the buyers and what all the problems and the difficulties they are facing in this model. And they after the feedback, they try to resolve the design and other elements. Then they go for mass production, right? They go for mass production. Yes, every car model here has a limited edition. You can see, especially Toyota. Yes, it has a limited edition. It's always a limited edition. Began silver color they put generally. So after the feedback from the customers, then they go and resolve all these problems before they go for mass production. Even with this exercise, still there are recalling of the cars and other products happening as well. The next is risk response strategies for positive risk. There are 4 strategies available as well: risk exploitation, risk sharing, risk enhancement, risk acceptance. Risk exploitation, risk sharing, risk enhancement, and risk acceptance. Let's look at them. Risk exploitation. What is risk exploitation? When I say positive risk, here we are looking at time saving, cost saving, and so on. What we normally say, hey, you are my friend for last 10 years. Every opportunity, you are utilizing me. You are making sure that you are benefiting from me. Because you see, I am always giving you the positive benefit. So you are always trying to exploit me to achieve the benefit. What does that mean? So you are making sure the risk happens because it's positive, so you can realize the benefit. So the positive risk exploitation can be realized by adding resources to finish faster than the complete plan, increasing the quality to increase the sales and customer satisfaction, utilizing a better way of completing the work, or any other method which creates a positive outcome. Definitely you make sure it happens so that you can able to realize the benefit. That's called exploitation. Risk sharing. Who is ready to share the risk? If there is a benefit, everybody is ready to share the risk, right? If there is a loss, nobody will be sharing the risk. Whereas we are talking about sharing the positive risk. The good example is our, what is that called? Joint venture partnerships, JV projects, JV projects. Why the large projects are being done in a joint venture arrangement? When you look at the large developments, there are multiple areas of expertise required. Where a single company does not have the capability to execute all nature of deliverables available in such a nature of large projects. That's why we are joining together. So if they do as a single company, sure they will lose money, they will be completing late, they will be losing their reputation, all the problems will happen. But if they join together, say one company is having a good experience in infrastructure, one company is having good experience in building construction, one company is having experience in MEP work, one company is experience in the other infrastructure finishing work. So if they all join together, they know if they do or with using all the company's expertise, we will be able to complete the project on time. We will be able to make good profit. Everybody, they know if we all combine together, we can make good profit. That's why we are going into the JV arrangements in the case of large projects. No company, single company, try to do these kind of projects alone. This comes under the risk sharing partnership. Enhancing the positive risk. And enhancing the positive risk. For example, you see there is a possibility of 1 month time saving using a particular methodology, cost saving of say 2 million. But when you are trying to walk through the execution or when you are trying to iterate the plans, you see there is a possibility of another combination of methodology and technology will save us 2 months time and it gives us 5 million cost saving. Then definitely you will go into that. So always you need to look for enhancing the positive risk so that you can be able to achieve the better benefit in terms of saving your time in cost and time in the project. That's called enhancing. When you say enhancing, looking for solutions, triggers or other drives to ensure the risk happens so that the rewards can be realized by performing again. The goal is to strengthen the cause of the opportunity to ensure the risk event happens, which is modifying the size of the opportunity basically. The fourth one is acceptance. What do you mean by acceptance? There are no other options available. Okay, let us accept this risk. Whatever happens, we will deal with it. We will bear with it because generally it happens because you could not be able to come up with a workable action plan, or maybe the risk is having a small probability of happening and impact or both. So you may not require formal response actions for these kind of risks, which is generally adapted for a risk acceptance strategy. But there are two types of acceptance. One is the passive acceptance, other one is active acceptance. When I say passive acceptance, no action required. The project team will deal with it. When the risk happens, there is an impact, they will deal with it. But when there is an active acceptance strategy is adopted, you need to develop a contingency plan so that you can utilize the contingency plan in periodically checking in minimizing the risk impact on the project. So of course, the acceptance strategy is applicable for both negative and positive risk. Now let's talk about active acceptance, contingency plan. What is contingency plan? Anybody can give me an example? I give a small example for you from my project experience. Say, for example, when I was doing the zigzag tower in 2006. Almost in 2006, the project was almost 1.5 year, 1 year, more than 1 year is finished. We are almost in the ground level of our structure, or maybe in the third floor of the structure. But what we have decided in the project is we made changes. For the air conditioning system, there is a district cooling system is coming up in the PL Qatar. Now, you may know about the district cooling systems, right? Which is a centralized chiller plant and supplying the chilled water for all the developments around that area. So if you use the chilled water system from the district cooling company, you will be able to save about 50% operational and maintenance cost over the life cycle of the building. So this is a very good saving. So we analyze and we see there is a benefit of using the district cooling system. So we decided to go for district cooling system implementation for our project. So we redesigned the whole development again. So when we go through this exercise, we analyze what is the risk involved in taking this decision. We see it's a small probability, about 20% probability only, not even 20%, 10 to 15% probability only. But if when we complete our project, if the Qatar Cool or the district cooling plant supplier is not able to supply chilled water from their plant, we will not be able to operate the building, or we will not be able to commission the building and hand over the property to the owners, because it's a freehold property. All are spending 1.5, 2 million. The time is very costly. 2 million, 2.5 million other ownership. So we will end up on a contractual obligation with the customers. So how can we deal with it? So we came up with a contingency plan. In case district cooling plant supplier is not able to supply chilled water when we complete the project, what could be done? So we came up with a plan of why not we operate the towers with a temporary chiller for at least 6 months. Because when we complete the project, when we are handing over to the tenants, they may do their own interior fit out, which may take 6 months. By the time the occupation rate is not going to be high, it's going to be around 30% occupational rate. So why not we operate the tower with a temporary chiller? So it seems workable contingency plan. So we came up with redesigning the slab. We made openings for accommodating the chiller, or also when we are doing the piping work for the buildings, for the chilled water system, we made piping work to the point of chilled water, the temporary chiller location. Every arrangement we are making through the life cycle of the project. Why? When we take this decision, in fact, plant was not available there. They have done only pilot plant to gain the buy-in of the developers around this area, which is being developed in PL Qatar at that time. They were only pilot plants. So we went through the pilot plant. We understand they show us the operations and they show us the efficiency of the system. It gives me like an optimal consumption of the chilled water to depending on the load of the consumption of the air conditioning within the building and so on. It's a very good system. But when you're looking at it, when we are taking decision, they don't have the plan. They're going to start construction. Of course, we are also construction. That area is under development totally. So when you're looking at their schedule, they are also completing almost in 2012 or early 2013 when we are finishing the project. So when we are analyzing, that's why we say there's a 10% possibility of the risk may happen. So in order to minimize this risk, or in order to minimize the impact of this risk, we need to continuously monitor the triggers which may cause the response plans, which is contingency plans, to activate. So what we did, we had a weekly or a bi-weekly progress meeting with the Qatar Cool in order to understand their planned progress, even their procurement status, and also they need to run the pipe from the plant to our development. It requires approval of the Ministry of Public Works. And that time, basically, the Lusail Expressway planning was ongoing. There is a complex of underground network around that area because the whole area is under development. So we coordinated with the Ashgal in getting the corridor for our chilled water piping network, which is crossing. There was an underpass. Now you can see there is an underpass completed for the PL Qatar, as well as for the other developments. So all these roads and developments was in the planning stage when we are doing this building. So we coordinated with them in getting the network approvals earlier so that we can commence the construction of piping network for our project. All these actions, we are doing it and continuously monitoring to avoid this activation of the our temporary chiller. So that's why when I say a contingency plan, it is a predefined set of actions the project team could take when the certain events occur. Events trigger the contingency plan to be tracked. That's why we are continuously monitoring those triggers to see whether it will not create the implementation of the end of the day. We also are not completed. They are almost about our completion. We are also almost about commission. So we have not implemented this contingency plan end of the day. But we made every provisions in making sure the contingency plan could be implemented if this risk happens. The other one is called the fallback plan, which is a reaction to the risk that has occurred when the primary response proved to be inadequate. We came up with the action plan. When you are implementing this action plan, it is not yielding the expected reduction in risk. What will you do? You put your hand like this? No. So we should have another action plan. If it is not working, so we should be able to implement with our another action plan, which is called fallback plan. You say plan A, plan B, right? That's the fallback plan. This is the calculation of contingency reserve. So assuming we have 4 risks, we are having the determination of probability of risk happening, and then we are having the cost impact for each risk is calculated. It could be positive or negative. So we calculate the EME value for each risk, say 0.2 into minus $4,800, 0.45 into $3,000, say 1,350, and so on. Finally, add up together, we get the contingency reserve fund. So we are again updating the risk report with the new information, all our selected action plan for each risk, and who is the risk owner, and what are the symptoms and warning signs or triggers you may see when the risk is happening. What is the specific strategies we have chosen for each risk, like avoidance, transference, mitigation, or acceptance. The budget and schedule for each risk response. Both contingency and fallback plans are documented. Upon completion of this exercise, you may see now, out of say 20 risks identified, you are able to come up with a risk response action plan for 15 risks. But there are still 5 risks remaining with you where you have cracked your head with your team. You are not able to come up with a workable action plan. Those 5 risks is called as residual risk. Those 5 risks are called as residual risk. Why residual risk? Because we do not have any workable action plan for these risks. So residual risk generally a typical minor in nature, which can be acknowledged and accepted. You may add contingency reserve, say certain percentage of cost or time as a contingency reserve to deal with it. The other thing we need to know, secondary risk. Secondary risk is the, say for example, you have a risk, you came up with the action plan. When the risk happens, you implemented this action, but it is creating another risk. For example, you appoint a third-party contractor to do this package. You came up with certain action plan, but they are not implementing the action plan efficiently, or the plan is not really working well, it's creating another risk. That means it's called as secondary risk. So the secondary risk is the risk caused by the solution, which is the failure of the third party to complete their assignment as scheduled, for example. So what we need to do with this risk? So again, we need to identify such a secondary risk. We need to take it to the planning process. Again, go through the qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis, come up with the risk response action plan. And then if these action plans require modification to the baselines, you take it to the integrated change control, get it approved, and then you modify the plan. So whether it is a new risk or secondary risk, again, we need to go through the planning processes and come up with the action plan. Yeah, this is what I told you. Creating contracts for risk response. Upon completion of this risk action plans, you need to decide what are the various contractual obligations and conditions to be stipulated in order to ensure these action plans will be implemented by the sellers appropriately to minimize the risk in the project. Of course, the contract may be needed for insurance purposes, customers' acceptance, or acknowledgement of responsibilities between the two parties in terms of managing the risk and other aspects. This all is part of this exercise. And then we are updating our plans. So I'm repeating again, showing with the map. Threshold we know. Cost, time, quality, technical, resource value used as a parameter, or it could be specifications. Crossing the threshold should be a trigger, which may indicates if the risk is going to happen. Triggers means warning signs or symptoms, or you can see the risk is going to happen. Workaround, maybe you heard this terminology, workaround. A response to the negative risk that has occurred is called as workaround. What is the difference between workaround and contingency plan? Workaround is not planned in advance. When the risk even occurred, then we are taking certain actions. That's called workaround. Whereas contingency plan, we have a predefined set of actions the project team should take in avoiding that risk. Residual risk we know, secondary risk we know. Same. Okay. The next process is implement risk response. Implement risk response. Here in this process, we are monitoring the identified risk for signs, whether risk is increasing, decreasing, what are the symptoms and warning signs we identify that it is happening, so that we can able to see whether the risk is occurring, increasing, decreasing, or looking for new risk. All are part of the implementation of the risk response process. So here, risk monitoring and control is the documentation of the failure or success of the risk response plan, for keeping the record of metrics that signals occurring, fading, disappearing from the project. Let's look at the process. When I want to implement, what I need in my hand? Only two things mainly I need: risk management plan and risk register and the risk report. Why in the risk management plan already we thought about how are you going to implement, what are the strategies or tools and techniques we apply in implementing the risk already we have documented, so we can use that strategy. Lessons learned register help us to see whether risk implementation is effective or risk is increasing, decreasing. From the lessons learned, we can see what all the risk already happened, why it happened, and so on. Risk register and risk report, all the analyzed information about the risk available here. Organizational process assets, of course, our lessons learned from the previous project could be taken into consideration. Look at the techniques, again, expert judgment, interpersonal and team skills, influencing, and the project management information system, our monitoring of the project work. From there, from the monitoring of the project work, we can see whether risk is increasing, decreasing, various happenings of the project, all can be used as a tool for determining whether risk is increasing, a new risk is being created in the project, there is secondary risk is happening there, all can be seen through this technique. Basically, this process is designed recently in this standard to ensure, because everybody is having some level of interest in planning the risk. But it comes to the implementation, they are not bothered. They are just used as a tool or as a planning work. But they don't implement these response plans effectively and efficiently. They don't bother about it. Then it is not giving the expected result in the project. That's why they added one process to insist on you need to have a focus in implementing the risk response plan you create in the planning in order to enhance your chances of achieving the project success. Solma. William. So when you are doing this process, so you are making sure the risk owner is implementing the risk response plans as we planned. Effectively and efficiently so that the risk impact can be reduced and the expected results can be achieved. So while you are doing this exercise, what is the result? Your result is change request, meaning you are analyzing the risk owner's effectiveness in the implementation and propose